Welcome back to another episode of Outcomes by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Kristin Baier, Chief Medical Officer at Onsera. Today, I have a very special guest, Onsera's Head of Coaching and PhD candidate, Dan Viscovich. And we're going to have a great conversation about the role of health coaching in the era of GLPs. Welcome, Daniel. Will you tell the audience a little bit about your background and what brought you to Onsera?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Kristin. It's an absolute pleasure to be chatting with you today. Name's Dan, Head of Coaching at Onsera. Background as a board certified health and wellness coach, and as Kristin alluded to, finalizing my PhD in health promotion, getting that done this summer. Emphasis in, again, as I said, health promotion, but really the nuances of individual behavior change and all the areas that are, components of coaching. Dissertation really built around the idea of the competencies of coaching and how those come to life for coaches in their practice. Additionally, I've had the chance to work over the past decade and a half in the coaching industry in different areas, from performance to metabolic health to the corporate wellness setting. And really through that entire time, really been kind of laser focused on, well, how do we implement evidence-based coaching at scale in a meaningful way?
And when people hear health coach, they imagine a lot of different things. Some picture a personal trainer, some picture someone telling them what to eat. What is coaching really? Can you help clarify that for our audience?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Kristen. There's a lot of, I would call it maybe mysticism or just maybe some different, understandings of coaching. Some people, as you said, think about personal trainers. Some people, maybe their only kind of context around coaching is a sports coach, somebody such as that. Well, really, there's a really great, body of literature and a whole profession itself of health and wellness coaching. And I would take that just a small step further and say evidence-based health and wellness coaching. And that's meaningful for, a few reasons. But when we think about that idea of a coach in comparison to maybe what folks might be holding in their head in that thought you talked about, is oftentimes people will think it is kind of a top-down approach where it's an individual who is an expert in health and well-being. They'll tell you, what workouts to do. They'll tell you what to eat. When in reality, what we know is that the best available evidence around coaching is it's actually kind of fundamentally the opposite of it. A coach is, for many things, an expert in supporting and facilitating behavior change. But the premise that coaching sits under is that the individual in front of us, the individual that we're coaching, is the expert in their life and their lifestyle. And we're support structure. We're here to help them in a multitude of ways built on the best available kind of behavior change sciences, but to help that individual kind of find what's most meaningful for them in their lives and then be able to, practice that in their lives. So that can be brainstorming. That can act as, a teammate in setting goals and things like that along their journey.
Thank you for clarifying what a health coach actually is and what their intent is through the process. And why does this distinction matter? We already know what works, what the evidence shows. Why do health coaches not just tell people what to do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we fundamentally know from the sciences, of course, is that there are really great targeted recommendations around our lifestyle. I think the science for a long time has told us XYZ habits, behavioral practices can really support our life and our lifestyle. Where, I guess if you could let me use the analogy, where the rubber meets the road per se, is that all of those recommendations really are not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every individual has nuances in their life. Every individual has, barriers, challenges, constraints, maybe even access specific to the environment that they live in. All of those are actually factors on how we make change in our life. And with that being the case, what a coach is so wonderfully positioned to do is to be able to spend that time with an individual, kind of navigate. I have a recommendation. Let's talk about maybe it's physical activity or something like that, right? As we know, in the GLP-1 population, individuals who are taking the GLP-1, physical activity is a very strong recommendation to go in combination with the medication support. For an individual, physical activity may differ from one individual to another. Let's say, for example, we have somebody who, maybe doesn't like going to the gym. Maybe it's 25 minutes between daycare and home, and there's not a lot of time in the day to do that. Well, that individual's lifestyle, maybe coming up in a coaching conversation, is going to look a lot different than, somebody who maybe has more time on their hands, who loves going to the gym. And that's really where the heart of those conversations come to life, is when a coach is working with an individual, allows that kind of self-generation on the member side to really understand what it is they want in their life and how that comes to fruition for them.
I think you're highlighting something really important here, which is a concept we like to carry through all the clinical verticals at Onsera, and that's personalization. Behavior change is no exception. We like to personalize their medications, their titration schedule, the dose, all their care. Everyone is starting at a different spot, and I love that. That's really what you're aiming to do with coaching at Onsera. It's not a one size fits all. We know the outcomes for one size fits all are not nearly as robust as when there's personalization involved. And so, how do GLP-1 medications change the work that you're doing as a health coach?
Yeah, well, what a great question there. So GLP-1 specifically, as you know, society and the evidence is showing us, it kind of fundamentally changes our lifestyle when we're on a GLP-1 medication. You know, food noise quiets down, and really ultimately what ends up happening, as I've seen in coaching practice in individuals, is our way of approaching foods ends up fundamentally shifting. And for some folks, that could be a change that they've never experienced in their life before when utilizing these medications. What we can then do and layer on our support structures, that being both our coaches, of course, and at Onsera, we have our registered dietitian support that can focus in on precision nutrition, but really more so on our coaching side. It's holding a space for our participants to be able to kind of navigate what that means for them moving forward. Oftentimes, what we'll end up seeing is, and I want to hold space for this, Kristen, the idea and the beauty of coaching ends up being when we get the chance to take a step back, it's an individual thinking through areas of their life and their lifestyle that in their in our fast-paced environment we don't quite get the chance to do very often, be very meaningful and thoughtful about kind of what we're doing and how we're approaching what we want to do this week with, say, the longer term vision of our life. And when coaching is there for that, it allows the opportunity, specifically in the GLP individuals taking GLP-1s, to have that space to be able to then craft, well, how do I want my approach to foods, my nutrition for myself, to look for myself moving forward?
That's a great explanation. And I don't know if you saw this recent publication within the past couple weeks that was highlighting that people tend to work out less when they are on a GLP medication. In my clinical experience, I found mostly the opposite to be true. And I am wondering if that is because I always encourage patients to utilize health coaches who can provide some of that guidance and structure that won't leave patients feeling intimidated of not knowing where to start, feeling like they have to meet these guidelines right off the bat. And sometimes it's a work in progress. If you don't mind sharing, what has your experience been in terms of patients who are on GLPs embracing exercise with the medication?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question. And I think there's a few paradigms to sit with a question like that. First and foremost, our integrated model at Onsera of our practitioners, our coaches, and our registered dietitians go hand in hand in many ways. One area that we do fundamentally see with individuals on GLP-1s is maybe at risk for lower for fatigue, or excuse me, for improved or increased fatigue due to perhaps under eating. In that avenue, that could be a reason why someone may feel a little discouraged from exercising. That's something that clinically, our teams are monitoring and watching for to ensure that folks are feeling good. In that capacity, though, we also fundamentally know that allowing an individual to work with a coach or have access to a coach, there's a few bodies of literature to show that coaching in the best evidence-based manner improves chronic disease outcomes, but also engagement in those lifestyle habits such as exercise, such as improving our sleep outcomes and things like that. Really, I think you said it a minute ago just wonderfully. It's allowing an individual when they meet with a coach to kind of scale that support that they need for themselves. For one individual, that may mean taking a walk around the block a couple times a week is an incredible place to start on their physical activity journey. For another individual, that might be different. That might be somebody that's more ready to go 2 times a week to the gym or do 2 times a week resistance training, as we know our physical activity guidelines are targeted towards. So in that nuance kind of allows that personalization to really make the most durable outcomes that we can.
Right. And I think everyone benefits from having a health coach, regardless if they're in a GLP-1 program or not. There's so much value to be obtained from working with a health coach, as you just highlighted. So walk me through from a participant side what their experience is like at Onsera. What does working with a health coach look like?
Yeah, a great question. So I think there are multiple manners of support within our program related to coaching. We are hiring board certified health and wellness coaches. And I actually want to just take a moment to kind of pause on that topic. The idea of coaching in itself, a little bit of a what we I guess you would call an unregulated or an unlicensed industry. And as a result, oftentimes we can have individuals kind of name themselves as a coach per se. Um, Whereas inside the walls of our organization, we're focused on the gold standard, the evidence-based approach to coaching, and that really is the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching certification, kind of a rigorous certification, structured training that's built around a detailed competency framework that is in line with the best available evidence. So that is who we absolutely aim to hire to support our participants. And in combination with that, internally, we are building our AI companion. Our AI companion being trained as an evidence based coach to allow for our participants to be able to access coaching support 24/7 through any time along their journey with us.
And I know you just touched on physical activity, but can you give our audience another example of the kind of thing a coach and participant work through together at Onsera?
Absolutely, yeah. So through our evidence based curriculum, our library of education that goes hand in hand with our coaching support, our pillars are built around nutrition, physical activity, sleep, and emotional health. So in each one of those pillars, often or we know that many habits that sit inside of those pillars are so beneficial for our health and well-being. For some folks, it may be more of a focus on, let's call it the sleep pillar. For some folks, it may be more of a focus on the nutrition or emotional health pillar. One example that comes to mind, I have this conversation pretty often with coaching participants, is let's talk about sleep. And sleep is kind of the elephant in the room that at times folks maybe don't want to talk about, maybe first and foremost, but it ends up coming out through coaching conversations as coaches as we build our relationships with our participants. One example coming to mind is on the focus of sleep. We know how important both quantity of sleep is for our health and well-being, but also quality of sleep. And where that ends up manifesting for folks is some folks may just think, oh, I need to get 8 hours of sleep and I'm good to go. When in reality, the quality of that sleep, have we been, watching the news for 2 hours leading up to going to bed? Well, we know that's actually going to kind of impact our sleep for a few reasons, both the light on our eyes and what it does for melatonin in our body, but also maybe stressors and things like that that are coming up before we sleep. So just as an example, areas such as sleep that we cover as well that are so important for our overall health and well-being.
And I love the lifestyle pillars you just discussed because I think sleep and emotional health are so underrated when it comes to weight loss as well. And I know you know firsthand how important those pillars are. I think exercise and nutrition really come to everyone's mind first and foremost when they think of weight loss, but sleep and emotional health are just as important in my mind. And we have diagnosed many cases of sleep apnea that don't fit the typical clinical presentation just because people started focusing on their sleep and putting together patterns of, okay, I snore on occasion, or I get 8 hours of sleep, but I still feel really exhausted. What's going on? And that quality aspect is super important. So what does a successful coaching interaction look like to you from a coach's perspective?
Yeah, yeah. I think for somebody walking away from a coaching conversation or coaching support, one of the most meaningful areas is that they felt heard. They've had the space to talk through and be able to kind of oftentimes what I end up saying is what people say in coaching conversations oftentimes isn't vocalized often. So having the chance to be heard and kind of allow an individual in front of you or any support that is coaching to be able to just be seen and be heard. And on top of that, the idea that um, when we walk away from a successful coaching conversation, it's really that the participant, the individual in front of us, has, self-generated or kind of come to what they want to do in their life, kind of on their own. I'll call it volition, right? If I entered a coaching conversation with you, Kristen, and I told you you needed to do X, Y, and Z, I would assume, maybe say back to me, who are you to know what's best for me in my life and my lifestyle?
Right.
Where in reality that conversation ends up being, Kristen, what's best for you when it comes to sleep at night, or how could that be more meaningful for you during your week, if depending upon the topic we're talking about. And one of the best available evidences that we know from coaching is that an individual who's able to kind of self-author or set their own goal for themselves is going to be more motivated to follow through on achieving that. It's going to be, more excited about it in general, but also be able to attain that, at a higher level than maybe if it was prescribed to them per se.
Right. And I think you hit on another important point here, which is most people don't like to be told what to do. This isn't a lack of education problem. It's developing the skills to change that behavior that I think is the barrier for a lot of people. I know in weight loss practices, many patients have tried everything out there to lose weight in the past with some success, sometimes not. But it's these barriers that they face in behavior change, not lack of education. I have found they usually know what to do. It's trouble executing on that. So you're a researcher yourself and you're finishing your PhD on this. What does the literature actually tell us about whether coaching works or not?
Yeah, what a great question. As we think about the literature, there are kind of two trains of thought. First and foremost is when we approach conversations and support in the evidence-based manner, I will say how we are approaching supporting individuals at Onsera. We know that it's the literature base already tells us through several systematic reviews and meta-analyses as well that we see increased outcomes in chronic disease. In chronic diseases. We see outcomes related to the improvements in lifestyle adherence, as we talk about. There's actually a lot of good evidence as well as in medication adherence as a support, as coaching, as a support structure and a tool for that. Um, I will also echo what I said a few moments ago because I think that's kind of just worth highlighting once more is that idea of when a participant comes to a coaching conversation and is able to walk away with a plan of action that they've self-authored, that we've seen that just leads to increases in motivation, in self-efficacy, or an individual's belief that they can, go out and do what they said they wanted to do is the easiest way to call that self-efficacy, and ultimately leading to those durable lifestyle changes in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and that autonomy piece is interesting because it almost sounds counterintuitive, right? That giving people more control produces better adherence, not
Hmm.
less.
Yeah. And that's actually the heart of the model that we've structured at Onsera. Coaching is not actually a mandatory, structure in an individual's journey through here. We have coaches there for individuals that are able that feel the need for that. Let's say a wonderful example is an individual who maybe is a more of a self-starter, or they actually do also have tools outside of our organization. Maybe they're working with a personal trainer, and that's that they love that relationship and are continuing to build that relationship. But this idea of an individual who is that self-starter, maybe they more so just need a few light touches. Maybe they'll have, one coaching conversation or a few coaching conversations with our coaching team to kind of adjust, or they leverage our AI companion for a quick brainstorming session, maybe on a Tuesday night at 10 p.m. when our coaching team may not be available for them, of course, that late at night. In comparison, there are individuals who may feel that they want kind of more nuanced support, more kind of detailed ongoing support, meeting with a coach every couple weeks. And we fundamentally are here for that. We are absolutely able to support however a participant best wants that support in their life.
I definitely want to circle back to the AI companion that you just mentioned. But before we jump to that, can you tell us a little bit more about how this is actually delivered at Onsera, starting with the coaching team? Who are these coaches?
Yeah, great question. So we hire board certified health and wellness coaches. Specifically, that evidence-based standard is top of mind for us during our hiring process and through our training as we move forward with these individuals. When we can rest our hat on that structure, we know that day in and day out, through those nuanced conversations that our participants are having, uh, the best available evidence is leading, and that's really the most effective support structure for making that lasting behavior change are working with individuals who have kind of met that training and rigorous threshold.
Yeah, and you did mention it is an unlicensed field. So having a health coach can mean different things, not in terms of what the definition is of a health coach, but what the qualifications are
Yeah.
as well. But I do want to dig into this AI companion a little bit more. Sarah has built an AI coaching companion into their member experience. Tell us a little bit more about that decision and why we went the route of an AI coaching companion.
Yeah, for a few reasons. Fundamentally, I go back to an individual first and foremost who is that self-starter who may feel that they don't fundamentally need a human coach in their corner. That's okay. That's built into our autonomy enabled structure to allow that individual to still have an absolute high quality, meaningful pathway through our AI companion. That AI companion that we have built internally is we're building it in a multitude of fashions. First and foremost, safety is on the top of mind absolutely across our organization to ensure, and this is the work that we've done, building it in a manner that it's not simply a what we would call a chat bot with just a few light guardrails. We have a brilliant and incredible AI team who I've had the chance to partner with to go very detailed, very nuanced into the both coaching sciences, but also the safety guardrails structured around how we ensure maybe any conversations that are coming up both remain in a scope of a coaching conversation because what we know from the science around AI support tools is that the experience an individual is having with an AI companion, if the trust is not there for that tool to be built the way it is, or to be able to support them the way it's stated, there's actually some kind of nascent literature coming out this year that's showing us that's going to lead to kind of a disengagement or lack of interest, right? Um, well, with that case, building it around the scope of an evidence-based coach, built into the layers of safety as kind of the kind of leading paradigm, we actually have the chance to do a few amazing things past that. Similar to how if you were to show up with your with our coach on an ongoing basis, we have the fundamental opportunity for our AI companion to get to know you, understand the context of your journey, know that last Tuesday you set a goal to work out twice a week if that was your goal that you set, and then be able to check in with you on that and see how you're doing and craft that, change that, modify that with you in that conversation, just as our human coach would be if you were there for that support structure.
Some listeners might hear AI coaching and worry it means less or lack of human care. What would you say to them?
Well, I think that's a fair take. There's always a healthy skepticism when it comes to anything that's new or novel. What we have intentionally done is crafted a support structure where we are not limiting human support in any means. Our coaches are absolutely available for individuals that maybe feel that they need just, a one-off coaching conversation, or maybe coaching once a month, or maybe a little bit more higher touch. We are in no shape or form, excuse me, limiting access to human coaching support in any way. Where I do find the beauty of it is actually kind of almost flipping that question on its head, Kristen, and allowing us to kind of highlight that it's only going to, in our opinion, enhance our coaching support, given that, let's say you had a conversation with your coach on a Tuesday, and maybe you've scheduled another coaching conversation 2 weeks past that, perhaps. Well, if something was coming up for you next week on Thursday, our AI companion is actually going to be there to, chat back and forth, maybe have a quick brainstorm for that, for your, in that moment. And then coming back to your coaching conversation in 2 weeks, you'll have the chance not only for your coach to know that you had the chance to kind of work through that in the beginning, but we fundamentally just feel that it's an enhancement to that existing relationship at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it, as an enhancement, not a replacement of a human coach. If you choose a human coach, that's definitely an option. If listeners remember one thing about coaching while on a GLP medication, what should it be?
Yeah, fundamentally, that our coaches and our AI companion at Onsera, we're here to support you. You may come across some nuances in your life and your lifestyle and want some support in kind of navigating barriers that come up. Being able to have a partner that can brainstorm with you on, how do I improve my sleep? Or, how can I think about how to, let's call it maybe something such as meal prep, or what's for dinner on Thursday night, or, what's the most meaningful physical activity for me in my lifestyle. The biggest takeaway is that our coaches and our AI companion are here to help personalize all of the best available recommendations for you to make the most meaningful changes in your life.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. My biggest takeaway from today's conversation is that the medication opens a window, but what you build inside that window is what really lasts. And the evidence is clear on this. Behavior change, habit formation, and long term success really require a lot more than just a prescription. It really demands a full wraparound support program with health coaches and registered dietitians, and they require support and accountability and a partner who's going to help you find that path that fits your life. And that's really what coaching at Onsera is designed to do. So, thank you everyone listening to Outcomes by Design. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcast and visit Onsera Health to learn more about how we're helping organizations improve outcomes through evidence-based obesity and cardiometabolic care. We'll see you next time.